Thank you to Vũ, who has spent a lot of time and made a lot of effort to make this series of webinars happen. I would also like to thank all the coordinators, to Nam and then Ms. Huynh, for helping me during the past week, as I'm a little bit busy with work at the university. Okay, thank you very much for supporting me so far. All right, and I think I plan to have a talk, not a talk, for a conversation within 1 hour and a half if we have much to say. Otherwise, it will be very fast, I think. Okay, but one thing I want to share with you is that at the beginning, when we first had some first discussion with the organizer of the webinar, we were thinking about the teachers at high school, right? As far as I remember. So what I'm planning to do today is to give some kind of theoretical background in general, but then we'll be looking at as together as a group. I don't say that I'm a lecturer, I'm an instructor. No, I'm here to share with you something that I'm using in my classroom. But the sample lesson that we will be looking at is taken from one of the new textbooks for the high schools, because I remember when we were talking about planning this webinar series, and then we were thinking about how to help teachers at high school to make use of the new textbooks. So I plan to show you one lesson in one of the new textbook approved by the Ministry of Education, and then we could discuss how we could plan a lesson and using a process-based writing approach. Okay, this is what I want to do with you today. And so let's see what we have. And why I'm talking, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and talk to me, because I think that this is not kind of a presentation. This is more like a sharing experience or sharing event or a discussion. So it will be much, much better if we can talk to each other. Okay, right. So let's see. Now, this is what we will be looking at today. So first of all, we'll have a brief overview of the product-oriented and process-oriented approaches to writing and teaching writing. And then if we focus on process-oriented writing, and then we'll be looking at the different steps in the writing process. After that, we will be working on how to plan a lesson using this approach to writing. And then hopefully we have some time for Q&A. So these are the things that I would like to go over today. Right, so first thing first, we're talking about writing as a product and writing as a process. So the other day, let's say 2 weeks ago, I had kind of a meeting, like a recruitment procedure where we sat down and we observed some of our applicants to our university who plan to teach a small lesson. And then one of them chose to teach IELTS, an IELTS writing lesson, task 1, okay? And then after she finished her lesson, and then I asked her a question. So I asked her if she was using a product-oriented or process-oriented approach to her lesson, and she was a little bit kind of confused. Okay, and then okay, not actually. Okay, maybe why she was conducting her lesson, she was more like process-oriented. But then when she was asked to distinguish between the two approaches, then she was not very clear about that. And then when I fill in the form for Vũ, before I actually presented this to you, then Vũ also asked me to give something like more practical, okay, in my talk, because it may be like the writing process can be quite long. If we try to think about applying it to high school lessons at high school, okay, and then we think that we may not have enough time to go over the writing process, and I kind of a little bit confused. No, not kind of confused, but a little bit upset, because I think that even though we are working at high school and our lesson can be very simple or something, it doesn't have to be kind of writing a research report or an academic essay. We can still use the process-oriented approach to writing. Even though it is a short lesson, like 45 minutes. So I do believe that the writing, the process-oriented approach can be applied to any kind of the writing lesson. But the fact is how we are going to manage the time and the resources, and then the types of the format of the activities we are trying to use in our classroom. So these are the concerns that we will discuss together this morning. So when we talk about product-oriented and process-oriented, so what do you think about writing as a product, and what is writing as a process? Can you think of any differences between the two processes? Any idea, please? So you can type in the chat box, or you can turn on your microphone and share with everybody, please. What do you think about writing as a product and writing as a process in your experience? Any idea? Hello. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but a little bit soft.
A little bit soft. Is it better now?
Yeah, kind of. Okay.
I'm trying my best to speak louder. But well, I'm not sure about this one, but I think for writing as a product, maybe you focus on, the final product of your writing lesson. For example, if you're teaching a student to write a letter, for example, at first, maybe you will show the students what a complete letter, what the final product would be like. And then the students and the teacher will analyze that letter, and we'll start from there, and then we'll break it down into, smaller parts or smaller techniques that the students need to use in order to make a product like that. But if we treat writing as a process, maybe we will start building the students from the smaller skills. For example, if writing is a process, I think we'll start from, the sentence, and then to paragraphs, and then we will come up with the final essay or the final letter. So that's what I can think of right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I cannot see your name. Okay, let's see who's. Miss Loan. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So thank you. But yeah, I do agree with you and on some of the ideas of the parts that you have shared with me. In the chat box, we say writing is a process of writing and rewriting, not an end product. We are looking at the writing as a process. Yeah, okay. So let me show you, before I share with you what I think, let me show you what I have to illustrate my point as writing as a product and then writing as a process. So let's see if I can link. Okay. Now, let me share the new one. So, if you look at, can you see the new screen? Yeah. So this is what I mean by writing as a product. You don't have to try to read everything in here. So this is what I mean by writing as a product. because what we care as teacher, what we care about is we look at the final product, just like what Ms. Luang said, as a product. And we look to see, yeah, we have the comments on, okay, we have a personal opinion, and then the language here is not appropriate, and then we have some mistake here. This is what you have to improve. But what the teacher sees at this time is just the final product. Okay, and when we look at this one, maybe we don't know the problems that the student have to, okay, have encountered from the time you gave them the topic to the time they submitted the final product like this. And we don't know how they work out, how they found the ideas, how they build up the sentences, how they build up the whole essay like this, and whether they ask for help from other people or not. We actually don't know what happens during the whole process when they start working, and then when they, until the time when they submit the final product. We don't know what happens. Okay. But then if we look at writing as a process, okay, then this is what I'm going to share with you here. Yeah. So you can see that this is in my class, and I asked my student to write an essay on the benefits and the drawbacks of using video conferencing application, for example. And then you can see that at the beginning, what happened was they got to give me an outline with some idea. Introduction, how many words, benefits, how many paragraphs, 500 words we have in here and here and here. So this is kind of an outline. Recording, they have all the outlines here, drawbacks here. So this is one. And after that, when I got back conclusion, you see the outline, detailed outline, and then they started writing. They started writing, and then I asked them to work in groups, and they had to use Google Doc to work together in groups, and the group members had to log in and to help each other revise and edit the essay. So you can see they commented the grammar, and they help each other to correct the answers in here, and they give me the word count. Okay, they have this one. Okay, but this is not the final product because they still have to edit us and then proofread that. This is what we have. And this is what I have seen the text in the chat box. Is a writing and then rewriting. But if you just write and rewrite, and this is not enough. Okay, so you can see the difference between writing as a product. I mean, we look at the final product. We care about what ideas, what problems, but just looking at the outcome. But when we look at the process, writing as a process, then we started from the beginning, supporting the student, trying to find out what they need, and then giving support promptly until they arrive at the final product. That is a writing process. And so why should we treat writing as a process, not as a product? Can you give me some ideas, some reason why we should treat writing as a process, not a product? Yes, yes.
Okay, hello, Ms. Duc, and hello, everyone. I think that we should treat writing as a process just because we can give students some kind of foundation for them not to write in one piece of writing or essay, but we can help them to write more than that. And with writing as a process, students can develop kind of set of skills.
Okay.
They can vision the outline of the plan so that they can prepare them better for the future product.
Okay, thank you. And okay, I totally agree with you when you say that throughout the whole process, the student can develop different kind of skills. Okay, and so when we treat writing as a process, we're not looking at only at writing skills. We are looking at trying to help them to develop a variety of skills. At each stage of the writing process, students will need to use different sets of skills. At the beginning and at the end, they will have to use different kind of skills. And when we guide them through the writing process, they have the opportunity to make use of what they have learned, not only in our class, but also in the other classes, from other subjects, from other skills. And we help them to recognize, to analyze their weaknesses and their strengths, so that they know what they need to improve. And teachers, we know what they need, what kind of help, what kind of support they need in order to provide support immediately, promptly. And I also agree with Phương when you say that students can learn from their mistakes. Yes. If we wait until the final product is out, yeah, we can underline the mistakes, the errors, and we give the comments and we take away the marks. And when we return the final product, we return the writing. Are you sure that they will spend their time looking back at what they have done? Are you sure that they will spend time correcting their own mistake after they receive our comments? I'm not sure, to tell the truth. And not most of the time, my students don't do that. So instead of waiting until the end to show them what they have not done appropriately, then we will help them to recognize what they are doing not very well. And then they can correct their mistake right at that time, and moving on and on and on. So when they come to the final stage, then it will be kind of, it's better. And I do believe that we have a kind of feeling of relief for both the learners and the teacher. For the learners, if we guide them, they know what they are doing wrong right at the beginning, and they corrected it. And then they will move on to the next stage. Then they don't have to worry about those things. And they just care about the next step, because all the other ones are fine already. And the errors or the mistake don't pile up. And they will not be overwhelmed with so many things to correct. And for the teachers, I believe that you don't want to read a paper full of mistakes and errors and things that you get angry and you don't want to mark it anymore, right? So instead of waiting until the end and then you get angry and you want just to go on, don't want to mark the papers anymore, why not helping them from the beginning? And then we kind of, at the end, I feel myself happy, very happy, marking papers that are neatly organized and then coherent and then containing fewer errors. And then one more reason is that I think that when we treat writing as a process, we are using kind of what we have, formative assessment, right? Not summative assessment, is it right? And we know the purpose of the two types of assessment. Formative assessment is to help to provide opportunity to supply information so that learners and teachers can adjust teaching and writing. It is much, much better than using summative assessment for the writing lesson. So those are some good reasons why I think that we should treat writing as a process. Okay, so thank you very much for your sharing. And now, let's see. So when we look at writing as a process, when we're talking as a process, then, okay, we need the different steps, right? So can you look at your writing lesson in your class? What do you think the teacher should guide the student through, or what do you think the student have to go through? What steps they have to go through from the beginning to the time they submit their paper or their writing? What do we have? What are the different steps, do you think? Yeah, wait a little bit so that we can have some ideas. So read. They should find relevant reading materials, but read what? Whatever they want. Okay. What do they have to read? Okay.
Well,
Read
to me,
the-
I think the
yeah.
first step should be brainstorming before you start reading. I
Mm.
mean, students should start from, what's inside their head first before, they go and, and look for, they do the research later, but start from what, inside them first. I think that's
So
also-
reading the question, the topic. Okay. And then,
Yes.
yeah, okay. And then from the
Can
topic. Yep.
Can I add some ideas?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. So I think the step for the writing process. So the first thing the student need to know is choosing a topic,
Mm.
and then they're gonna gather ideas like doing some brainstormings,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next step will they help. They will. It could be work, group work, pair work. They're gonna decide which idea they're gonna use and where do they use it in a certain paragraph or essay.
Mm.
And then the next step will they start writing their first draft,
Mm.
and then and they will review it after they done for the first draft, and they review and revise it, and then they can they can revise it to develop it, make something more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
They add more details, or they can change the organization of the ideas in the paragraph or essay. Yeah. I think so.
Okay. But Dan, this is you are looking at your audience. Your audience might be kind of university students, and then when they have a topic, they have to choose their own topic, and they have to work on that. They have the time to, just like what Vũ mentioned to me the other day. We say we have a lot of time for the student to go through anything together as a group, and we don't have to care about the time, for example. And now we are looking at the situation. We may have to look at the situation when the questions, the task can be very simple, like at high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then, okay, is it the same? Is the process still the same?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Do I have any high school teachers here?
So you mean the task must be done in the class, right? Within one period or two periods, not like
Maybe all in the classroom, but the context, the setting is high school. And now how should we treat the writing process in the high school? Because at university, we have a lot of time, and we can ask the student to work together. They can work on their own, they can work in groups. But how about the writing process in the high school context?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have any high school teachers here?
I'm one. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So we have, I had some.
Most of the time we look at a student's language competence first.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on the class that I'm teaching, the student language competence. So if they are quite a low level performer, I would provide them sample first. And we are going to break down that sample into the format of the sample, and we are practice on some kind of like ideas, and then we go to structure. So I kind of guide them through some kind of guided writing before they are going to brainstorm for their all the bigger topic, and then to draft the first one, that are going to rewrite and then feedback, and then they rewrite when they submit.
So it means that you have to do a lot of things in preparation for the actual writing, right?
Yes, kind of, because of the student's level.
Sure, and this is normally what happens, what we can see in high school textbook, right? We normally have writing lessons where we have kind of a sample, and then some structures and some vocabulary. And after that, after we analyze the sample with the student, and then we will say, okay, now do the same with blah, blah, blah. Is it right?
Yes, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, and can I ask one more question, Mr. Sang? And then it means that when you look at the sample, you kind of guided writing like this, and then you help the student analyze the sample, and then you teach some structures and then some vocabulary needed for the writing task. And at the end of that analysis, analytical task, and then you have the task, the new task for them. Now describe something. Now, so at that time, will you let the student work on their own, like 15 minutes and 20 minutes, and then they will have to give you their work? Or will you organize some other activities?
Because when I came to that stage, most of the time there would be no more time. Yeah, so probably it would brainstorm, and then they will talk to their friends about it, and then I'll give them some more feedback, because I have given them so much preparation beforehand. So at that time, it's quite a run out of time. So I just ask them to orally report what they have, what they have been doing so far, and then just go on, and they can complete their writing at home.
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem is that stage. Because when we have the writing process, I mean, the student will have to go through all the steps, and we monitor them and we provide them with prompt support in all the stages. But then analyzing the sample, showing them what structure they need, blah, blah, everything, maybe just for the first step, or not yet with the first step, because this is not their writing. This is not their writing, okay? So the writing starts when they look at their own task. We have that one. Okay, so we will try to find some way to solve that problem in here. Okay, and so we have some other ideas in the chat box. So we have plan, write the first draft, proofread, peer correction, rewrite the final product. Yeah, we have some keywords here like plan and draft and proofread and then revise, but I may disagree a little bit with the order of the steps. The order of the steps. So normally, when we look at the writing process, we will have this kind of procedure. So we start with planning. We start with planning the ideas. The student, we will have to have the student plan. And of course, if they want to plan their writing, they have to understand, they have to analyze the tasks. So they have to read the question, they have to read the topic, they analyze what kind of essay, what they are going to read about planning. And after that, they have to plan what kind of structure they are going to use. They have to plan what vocabulary they need to use in order to write about this topic or this task. They have also to plan, okay, the organization, how many paragraphs that we have to have in their writing later. Okay, they also have to plan the examples. I mean, all the kind of plannings in here. But of course, I want to go back to what Mr. Shang has shared with us. The analysis of the sample is also in this one. When the teachers is helping the student well prepare for the writing task, then analyzing the sample, introducing to them the structures, helping them to revise the vocabulary can be classified into the planning stage. Okay, so if we stop here and then we ask the student to go home and write, and then we just finished the very first stage in the writing process in class. So after the student have a clear plan of what they are going to write, the structure, the vocabulary, the ideas, the example, the organization of their writing, then they will start working on this, drafting, writing their first draft. Now, some of you after this, and now you say, yeah, submit your paper and all, students work together to correct something. Okay, but we don't use the word correcting. We don't use the word proofreading, not yet with proofreading. After drafting, it comes revision or revising their work and then editing their work. Now, normally there is a confusion between revising and editing. Can anybody help me distinguish between revising and editing stages? What do you think about the difference between revising and editing? Okay. Any idea, please?
Yeah, I think revising means you will check what you have written, including like structure and content. And editing, like you can like add more idea or remove the certain irrelevant idea, or you can, yeah, you can stay something which is clearer. Yes, I think so.
Okay. All right. So this is one idea. Thank you, Jack. Other people, what do you think? Some people may think of, okay, may use revising and editing kind of interchangeably, but then there are some important differences between them. Tell the truth. Yeah, let me look at revise means correct the mistake, edit means add and modify. Okay. Revise means reorganize your content, edit you change the word or the sentences. Okay. Right. Yeah, we have some truths in there, but then they're still not very, because you can see that for Phương say correct the mistake and edit mean add more thing, but then Thi has I think opposite opinion. We say revise mean organize your content and edit mean change the word or the sentences only. So you see that you two have the opposite viewpoints about revising and editing. See? Okay, now actually we have one more step, and then you will get more confused when we look at the 3 steps here: revising, editing, and then proofreading, and they are different. Okay, so let's go step by step. Now, after the student have finished their first draft, okay, we have, yeah, sorry, I was looking at the chat box. Revising, check vocabulary, structure, idea, and structure. Editing, word limit, spelling. Mr. Sang, you say content, form, and spelling. Okay, right. Now, let's see. Revising, mostly, mainly revising. We're looking at the coherence of the ideas, the organization of the ideas, the fulfillment of the writing task. I'll say it again. When we are revising our product, okay, while writing, we will check whether the ideas are relevant to the task or not. Have we answered all the questions in the task or not? Okay, are we answering, are we addressing the task, the topic in the task or not? Okay, we have the ideas, the different ideas, the paragraphs. Are they coherent? Are they well organized? Are they coherent? Is it easy to follow the flow of ideas, the flow of thoughts in the writing task or not? So most of the time, revising is about the ideas, the content, the meaning. So this is a time when you want to remove some irrelevant points. You want to add some more example to support it. Okay. Yeah, and you want to strengthen your arguments by adding some more arguments. Yeah, if you are looking at IELTS writing, I can see that you are looking at IELTS writing. Sure, that will be about task response or task achievement, task 1 and task 2, right? And coherence and cohesion. That will be about that. Sure, that is for revising. If you are looking at some other like CAT-PAT writing, high school now are aiming at CAT-PAT, and then you will have to ask the student. You may have a checklist, and you ask the student. You see, yeah, they are asked to write a letter, and in the letter, they have to mention 3 or 4 ideas. And then the student will have to check whether they have mentioned all of those ideas in their letter or not. That's all about the ideas. Okay? If you ask the student to write task 2, for example, task 2 in IELTS, and then sometimes they will have multi-part essay, right? Multi-questions. And then you will have to ask the student to check whether they have addressed all the questions in the essays or not. So that's what we have. That's what we have for all of the revising. Now, when it comes to, editing mostly deals with major grammar structure, use of vocabulary, linking words, some kind of. When we look at the editing stage, we are dealing with major structures, grammar, vocabulary. That is for editing. And the last thing about proofreading, I mean, when we are happy with all the ideas, we're happy with the organization of the ideas, we are happy with the vocabulary, the structure. Now, proofreading is just to deal with very, trivial things. 2 or 3 minutes at the end, for example, to look at like punctuations, spelling, format, of the writing product. That is for proofreading. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, you're right when you say that for editing major grammar, we have tenses, clauses, structure, subordinate clauses, or we have the use of vocabulary, something about that. And when proofreading, we're looking at very small things like punctuation, use of comma, full stop, capitalization, and the format. If you are asking the student to submit an academic paper with kind of margination, or whatever, that is for proofreading, spelling as well. Okay, so these are the steps we'll have to go through in the writing process, starting with planning and ending with proofreading. Okay, any idea, any comments, please? Any questions? So when yes, please.
I mean, are all of these stages happens in the classroom? Or
it doesn't have to. No. I don't say that we have to go through all of these, because like at high school, right? There are some very complicated tasks, and then we certainly cannot do all of these inside the classroom. No, I have to say so, and I don't mean so. Okay, so what do you think can be done at home, Sang?
I mean, the last 3 part could be done.
Revising?
Oh,
do you think we can ask the student to revise the writing task on their own?
I think it really depends on the situation, your student's level, and many other factors as well. Yeah.
And editing as well. So we will talk about this. And in what situation do we need to provide, do we need to organize these stages in class? And or if we can't have the time, then what other ways we can use to help the student go through the last 3 steps, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right, I was talking about something. I was planning to say something, and then let's see what was I talking about. We have planning, crafting, revising, editing, and proofreading. Okay, so I just forgot. I went out of my mind. Okay, let's see. Yeah. We have some ways to, no, it's okay, we just that. We can use some kind of like technological tools to make all of these stages happen. How many steps, okay, we have questions in the chat box, everyone. How many steps do we apply for different levels? I say, It doesn't mean that with lower levels, we can remove some, or with a higher level when we cannot. No. These are the key steps in the writing process. And when we teach writing as a process, we all have to go through all of these steps. It's just that how much time we will assign for each step, then it depends on the task. It depends on the level of your students. And it depends on how much time you have in your classroom. Okay, but you have to go through all of these steps when we're looking at writing as a process. Okay, I teach IELTS very often, and then I do follow all of these in my classes. Tell the truth. Okay, right. So we can go on to the next activity where I'm sharing with you a textbook. One textbook that has been approved by the Ministry of Education. And then let me open the link to the book for you. Here. Yeah, this is for grade 10. This is for grade 10. Okay, just a little bit. We'll share this out. Yeah, for example, I want you to have a quick look at this one. So unit 1 is about people, describing people. Just have a quick look at the unit so that we know we can situate the writing lesson in here. You can see that they will talk about the people, and the grammar points they have to work through is present perfect. The comparison between the present perfect and the past simple, the vocabularies, the adjectives that they use to describe the people, human personalities, collocation, all kinds of things. So in this book, students go through some reading activities, then grammar, vocabulary, listening. Okay, they go through another reading task, grammar, vocabulary again. And here comes our writing lesson. And you can say it just like this. So this is the task. This is that writing a short passage, 120 to 150 words about someone you have admired for some time. And then there are 2 suggestions: how long you have known them, what you admired about them. So, okay, in their writing, they need to address the 2 questions. So this book is going to be used by some provinces in Vietnam. I just know that they may be used by the school in some areas in Hanoi, in Lạng Sơn, in Bình Phước, Bình Thuận, Lâm Đồng, Đồng Nai, something about that. Okay, and so some high school in those places are going to use this book next year, in the coming academic year. All right, so this is what they have for the writing lesson. And according to the course outline, they will have kind of half an hour or 45 minutes to work on this writing lesson. Maybe half an hour. Before that, they have some other things. Okay. However, before they come to this writing task, they have already learned the structure to talk about people they have known for some time. They met in the past, for example, the simple past, and they already learned about the vocabulary, the adjectives that they can use to describe people. They have the opportunity, they also have had the opportunity to revise the structure, like he looks like something, some structures to describe people. That's what they have learned in this unit. And now here comes the writing lesson. Okay, see that one. Now let's get back to our slide. I want to introduce to you, I want to help you review what we need to concern when we plan a lesson in general and when we plan a writing lesson. So I think that we should make clear of three things at the beginning. The first one is we'll be looking at the learning objectives, the objectives of our lesson. The second one is the assessment that we are going to use to check or to evaluate the learning process and the learning outcome of this lesson. And then the last one, we'll be looking at the activities, student activities and teacher activities that may happen during this lesson. So when we plan a lesson in general, or when we plan a writing lesson like this, I think that we should make clear of these three things. And actually, I'm using the backward design approach to planning a lesson. I'm going to text you in the chat box this kind of this one. We have the backward. Okay, sorry, a little bit. Backward design to lesson planning. So when we use this approach to lesson planning, you will start with the learning objectives. And then we will think about what kind of assessment we are going to use for our lesson. And the final thing is we are going to design the learning activities. This is what they call the backward design to lesson planning. Okay, right. So first thing first. Now, what do you think about the objective? So I have shared with you the lesson, the writing task. What do you think will be the objectives of this lesson? What do you think will be the objective of this lesson? If you want me to share the book again, then tell me, okay? Okay, it's better to share the task again. Okay, let me make it bigger. Right, so this is our task. Write a short passage about someone you have admired for some time, include blah, blah, blah. So what do you think should be the learning objectives of this lesson? Any idea? Okay. Yeah, let me see. Student can use most of the words or phrases in the previous part of you to describe a person. Okay, student will be able to describe a person using the structure and the vocabulary, right? Another one, student know to write a paragraph to describe about a person. Okay, student apply the grammar point of present perfect and simple past, simple present in the writing. Yeah, okay, looking at that. Okay, yeah, we have all of the objective here. Okay, any ideas? Any more ideas? Okay, so you remember the task. It's easy. So I want to go back to my slides to share with you some suggestions. Actually, in recent years, I have had the opportunity to conduct the training workshops for high school teachers in some provinces. And then we often chatted a lot about the new policies, the new way of teaching, all kind of things. And I know that the teacher, high school teacher, not only senior high, but also secondary teachers and even primary school teachers, they are normally required to design the lesson plan using the backward design, using the new way of the, and backward design here means when you talk about the learning objectives, you have to include three kinds of objectives here. We have to start with understanding. what the student will understand after the lesson. And then we will go on with the knowledge. What kind of knowledge the student will learn, will master after the lesson. And the last one will be the skill. I mean, what the student will be able to do after the lesson. So it's very clear we have understanding, knowledge, and then the skills. And some of you will say, so what is the difference between understanding and the knowledge? Because so it is different because we have another term for that. So understanding here is about the big ideas. So the big ideas here are the concepts that are related to the whole study program. It's not only about one unit, one task. This will be the connection. This will be connected to the course learning outcome and the program learning outcome. And normally, our teachers are not very familiar with thinking about the big ideas. We just look at individual tasks and then individual unit. But then if you look at the whole book, you can see that. We look at the whole book, you'll see that each unit fits in and each unit has its own role in the whole course, right? So for example, you are looking at a course book for IELTS. Now, if you want to teach IELTS for the student to get prepared for the IELTS exams, and then the student have, okay, the kind of language, okay, but they also need to learn some test taking strategies, right? And then the test taking strategies have to cover the skill that they need in order to deal with different kinds of questions in the IELTS exam, right? And so your unit, this unit, the specific unit must fit in with them. I mean, it covers this part and how is it linked to the whole course? It's the same in here. All right. So what is the objective? What are the objectives of the whole book? And then the English course, how does it fit in with the whole study program, for example? We're thinking of, that's what they mean about the big ideas. Okay. And so for this lesson, like here, the big idea is we need to, like teacher, we need to spend some time getting familiar with the idea of finding the big ideas and the whole syllabus so that you can find the big idea, because this is what the unit functions to fulfill part of the whole course. And you see not only one, it comes again and again and again throughout the course. Okay, so let me give you an example. A writing lesson people. Student will learn to respect other people. That's what they mean by big ideas. Okay, so we have some comment in the textbook. So, well, it's good. Is it okay now? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I think it is better now.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Right, so this is about the big ideas, huh? Now for the knowledge. We are looking at the grammar structure and the vocabulary that they need to master after this lesson. Okay. You see that? And so the students have already learned the present perfect and the past simple. They have already learned the vocabulary that they can use, the adjectives that they can use to describe personalities. So add more vocabulary to that knowledge. That's it, rather knowledge, right? Okay. Or they also learn about the structure of a paragraph, for example, structure of a paragraph, kind of. How about the skills? Then what skills do we have in here? What the student lacking again? Okay, I'll need to check a little bit because I'm still staying in the. Okay, let me stop sharing. The internet is still the same. I'm still in the same room or something. Okay. Is it better now, everybody? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yeah, stop the video. No more sharing of the sounds, example. Okay. Right. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Oh, no more video. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Right. So let me go back for this one. All right. Thank you. Right. So talking about the skills again. So we are teaching a writing lesson, right? So what we need to use, student will be able to write to describe a person. Is it right? A person. But then beside that, student will be able to use the present perfect and the simple past. Okay, the student will be able to use adjectives to describe personality. Okay, will be able to do something, to use something, to produce something. And so that's it about the skills. So when we plan the objectives, you have to think of understanding, knowledge, and then the skills. Okay, right. So that's it, the first thing for your lesson plan. Now, after that, you will have to think about the assessments. How do we evaluate the learning outcomes? Okay, so for our writing lesson, what do you think we should use in order to evaluate the student learning? What do you think? For this kind of task, what do you think? Any idea? Yes, we have a rubric. Yeah, rubric, it means how we are going to evaluate, what tool we are going to use to evaluate their writing. So we will have to design a rubric, right? A writing rubric for this task, but rubric for what? We will use a rubric for what? Use a rubric for what? So you may think that you are using a rubric for marking the product, right? The paragraph, is it right? Marking the paragraph. Task achievement, okay, all right. But it means that you are looking at the final product only, right? Okay, so what else do you think we can use in order to evaluate the learning? So think about, yeah, we have some more ideas here. Show it to the student before they write. Show it to the student before they write. You mean that we show the rubric to the student before they write? Okay, sure. Because students need to know what they will be evaluated for, right? Okay, how they are going to be evaluated. Sure, but what else? So when we talk about assessment, we normally think about two kinds of assessment: performance tasks and other evidence. Performance task means the assessment task in which students actually perform or show or use their language skills. Okay, I'll say that again. Performance task. Okay, in terms of assessments, when we look at performance tasks are the tasks in which we can observe the student performance using their use of the language skills. Example of performance tasks can be presentations, can be role play. Okay, can be for the speaking task, can be a role play, can be a presentation, group presentation, or it can be the final product, I mean a paragraph here. That's it, the performance task, right? Besides, we can have other evidence. We can have something like homework. We can ask students to complete a quiz. But when they complete a quiz, I mean, we just look at their ABCD or something, but we actually don't see their use of language, right, in action, right? But is the other kind of evidence to show that they have attained a certain level of learning, of achievement, right? So we have like quizzes, homeworks, observation, okay, tasks, for example. Those are called other evidence. So you can see that when you look at performance task, you can see that we can see students do something, use their language skill, and that's what we call performance task. Beside that, we can use other evidence. I mean, we can use other kind of assessment to evaluate the student learning. So when we design the assessment task, be sure we have both kinds. And also think about what you call the rubric, what tool we are going to use to evaluate it. And then for the writing, for the paragraph, we are going to use the rubric, right? Sure, we're going to use the rubric, right? And another one, I see that Mỹ said that we are going to use the checklist of the writing process, but this one is what we can have the peer assessment, right? Or self-assessment. When we provide the student with a checklist of the writing process, I mean, have you gone through this? Have you done this and this and this? This can be used for peer assessment or even self-assessment. Is that right? Okay, we'll be looking at it. We'll be looking at it later. Okay, when we will use the checklist. So these are the assessment tasks. Now, the last thing, okay, so when we look at your lesson plan, we are looking at lesson plan. I'm not talking about teaching in the classroom. So we have objectives. The next step is assessment. And so the very last stage is now our learning activities. And so for our learning activities here, we will start with planning. Okay, we have teachers activity and then student activities. Okay, everybody, can you help me go over all the 5 steps here? Now, we have the planning here. What activities do you think we should include in this step, at this stage? Planning this task, what do you think? I will go back to the task here so that we can, okay, see. Now, so this is our task, planning. What do you think? We look at the chat box. Matching what? Sorry, Cook, what do you think? What do you see by matching, Cook?
Yes, I mean that when students do planning,
they will have a lot of ideas.
Mhm.
So imagine help them to rearrange the ideas in orders, something like that.
Okay, but do you mean that they have ideas already, right? Okay, so preparing, planning the ideas, right?
Right, right.
Matching.
Yes.
So you will ask them to have some kind of activity, matching activity to arrange the ideas. Okay. Now in the chat box, we have something like identify the keywords in the question. Ms. Loan says so. And I do agree with her. I totally agree with her because the very first thing I always ask my student to do, even, okay, no matter what level they are, very low level, intermediate level, or IELTS, whatever, I mean, they have to analyze the task. They have to analyze the questions. And so the very first thing I ask them to do is to underline the keywords in the question. And they have to remember how many questions, how many parts there are in the task. So if you look at this, I think that, yeah, underline the keywords. So you have someone, okay, admire, and then how long known, and then what admired about. Okay, so they will have to underline the keywords here. So the step number, okay, sorry, activity number 1, analyzing the task, right? Analyzing the task. One of the very first activity will be to analyze the task to make sure they know, yeah, this is a topic and what they have to mention in their writing. Yes, we have that one. Now, the next one is to agree with some of you here will say vocabulary, right? Vocabulary. So can I ask you for this lesson like this? We know that the student have learned the vocabulary before. Okay, so do we need to prepare the vocabulary now? And also about the structure. You don't need to? Jam, you say you don't need to? Other people, what do you think? Do we need to teach a vocabulary? Let's say some answer from Loan. When you say some answer, what do you mean by the answer? You mean ideas, or you mean vocabulary, or you mean grammar structure?
I mean, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, please. Very well.
Yes, I mean that we can ask the students some questions that is related to the topic to see their answers, so we can observe if they have the necessary vocabulary and grammar structures they need. And is there anything else we need to, add in order to equip them for the writing?
But this lesson takes place when they have gone through all the parts of this unit. And you remember I showed you the unit. We have the grammar activities, we have the vocabulary activities, all the things there. So that means that when we have gone through all of this, and we expect the student to know all of them already. And so that's my question. Do we need to teach to prepare the vocabulary now?
I don't think we need to teach, but I think it's necessary to remind the students of what they've learned a little bit.
Review, right?
Review.
Sure. That's right. Okay, so after we have this, thank you, Ms. Lan. After we have helped them to analyze the task, I think we can spend some time reviewing the vocabulary and the structure. Just reviewing, very quick review of the vocabulary and the structure that they are going to use in the next step for this task. Okay, right. So what's next? Still in the planning. Now it comes to the ideas. So we have talked about analyzing the task. We have talked about the revision of necessary vocabulary and grammar structure. Now, very, very important thing here. Okay, the ideas. So then you say we still need to prepare so that we can make sure students fully understand and remember the vocabulary. Then you have to remember Mr. Sang and I was talking about the time allotment that we have at the high school, and this is a high school textbook, and we know that before this the students have spent like 3 or 4 periods working on the vocabulary and the structure. So we don't need to teach carefully. And that's why Ms. Long and I are talking about we are reviewing using some small activities like matching, multiple choice, or a game or a mind map or something to help them review the vocabulary and the structure. Okay, but then can I ask you how we can help the student prepare the ideas? They got the vocabulary already, they got the grammar structure already, but now here come the ideas. How? What do you think we should do in the next stage, the next steps? Still in the planning, okay, everybody? Still in the planning. If you were to teach this lesson, what would you do in order to help the student prepare the ideas for this task? To brainstorm by themselves properly, some questions are needed if students are at a loss, and then narrow the reading. Okay, brainstorm, outline their writing from their own experience, look at other ideas. Okay, right, sure, all right, but Phuong, we haven't got anything, and then you ask them to outline their writing already. Okay, outlining should come after brainstorming, right? Yeah, it should come after brainstorming, and you allow the student to write out as much as possible whatever they have in their minds, and then they will have to look at that and to select the good ideas to organize them into their own outline. They will be later, is it right? Okay, so ask them what quality make a person admirable, then they can choose a specific lesson a bit easier. Now, we say what quality that make a person admirable, and then and I believe it's a good way then, but I believe that if you do this, and then you are going to spend like more than 10 minutes because students are going to give you a lot of things. You may do this if you don't have the time constraints, and if you have a class of strong students, right? You have a class of strong students. Now I'm looking at an average class, average level. So if I were you, everybody, I will start going straight to the task because I know that I don't have much time. So after the revision of vocabulary and grammar, what I need to do is I'm going to do this. So everybody, I need you to take out a piece of paper. I will ask my student to take out a piece of paper. I will give them 1 minute. 1 minute. I will want them to, on top of the paper, write down the name of the person they have admired for some time. Just the name, a person they want to talk about. I'll give them 1 minute. Okay. Or if you don't want them to do that, you want everybody to follow your schedule, okay? And you don't want to waste the time. You may want to prepare a handout. And in the handout, yes, handout, sure, Sang, okay? We get the same idea, right? So we had a handout, and then in the handout, we have first line, name of the person. Sure, okay? Second, remember, okay, how long you have known them, and then how many years, something about this one, okay? And then what you admired about them, okay? Why you admire them, okay? And then write down 3 vocabulary or 5 vocabularies you want to describe them, okay? And what did they do? For the weaker student, if you have a class of weaker students, you can give them more support by giving them a handout in which you have some questions. What is the name? How long have you known them? What personality? What are 5 adjectives, 3 adjectives? Write out 3 adjectives you want to describe them. Okay, what did they do? What did they do? What you admired about them? Write out 2 things you admired about them. Okay, and what is your final opinion about them? So we think about that. We have 120 words, so it's about like a short passage. Okay, a short passage, not a paragraph. Can you see that? And okay, so you say a short passage, it can be like 2 or 3 paragraphs, 2 or 3 paragraphs. So you may have a list of questions, here. Okay, describe them, and then what you admire about them. What is the specific, some questions about that. All right, and then you give them the handout, right? So you ask them to write down the name already. Now you will give them some time to brainstorm for the idea. Yes, good questions, helping student to get the ideas. If this is a strong student, besides some guided questions, then you may ask the student to write out whatever they want to, but make sure that your question include on the past in the task here. How long you have known them, and then what you admired about them. Yes, mind map is another way. However, some students don't like the use of mind map. So you may, in your class, you may introduce to them the different ways to plan. You may introduce to them the use of mind map or of the table or just a list, whatever they want to use. I will talk about this one later. Okay, so make a list. And then you say, now you have 5 minutes to write some works about this, to brainstorm some ideas. So give them, okay, so the next step is to give the student 3 to 5 minutes, jotting down, taking notes of the ideas, the vocabulary that they want to use, the ideas for their paragraph. Okay, just write out all of the things here. Okay, now we have the short passage here. This is coming back to Phương. So we have all the brainstorming ideas here, right? So the next step in the planning is to ask the student to organize the ideas, right? And then they will have the outline. Can you see that? Okay. But before you can do that, I like the idea of one person here when you say that they can share. They can share what they have with other students. So you may ask the student to share now the brainstorming ideas. Or you can ask the student to make their outline first, and then they can share their outlines with other people. It's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, so I normally ask the student to organize the ideas that they have selected into an outline first. And after they are happy with their outlines, then I normally ask the student to work in pairs or in group, and they will share, they will exchange their outlines, and then they help each other to check, and then they can borrow the ideas, borrow the vocabulary, borrow the structures from other friends. So we're still in the planning stage, right? So the planning stage, we have different activities here. Can you see that? Different activities here. Okay, and you can see that even within the stage of planning, we already have the assessment, feedback. If you ask the student to share their ideas, to share their outline with each other, we are using peer feedback, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we are using peer feedback, sure. See, right. So that's the second stage for, no, the first stage for planning. The second stage for drafting. This is for drafting. Okay, so what do you think? We can ask the student to write immediately in class here. Because if you have a 45 minutes, this one, so you can ask the student to spend like 10 minutes writing their first draft using the outline they have got. Now, for the strong student, we may ask them to work individually. For a weaker class, you may want to ask them to work in pairs or in groups. Even with writing, we can use pair work and group work. They can help each other to write. Using the outline they have got, using the vocabulary, the structure, they can finish up their draft. Okay. Right. And so that's this one here. Now, The next step is for revising. Now, what do you think we can do for the revising step here? What can we do for the revising step? Remember, revising means checking for ideas, checking for the relevance, checking for the organization, checking for the fulfillment of the task. Let me see in the chat box. Yes, Sang, and this is what Miss said earlier, checklist. Yeah, the teacher cannot check everybody works, right? We cannot go over, and then we don't have time to do this. So this is a time when the checklist can help a lot. The checklist can help a lot. Peer feedback, that's right. Peer feedback checklist, okay? And then so we can prepare a checklist to ask students some questions about the coherence. Did you mention how long you have known them? Did you say why you admire them? Did you say what you admire them about? How many adjectives have you used? Did you remember to use the present perfect? Did you blah, blah, blah? How many, did you organize the idea into 2 or 3 paragraphs using the checklist? Now, I want to share with you another technique that we can use to help the student revise the ideas, even if I have only 10 minutes. And this can be used for some, what I call fast finishers. I mean, there are always some groups, some students who can finish very fast. And the technique I'm going to use is called the teacher-student conferencing. Teacher-student conferencing. It means I always put my chair and then a table and some chairs for the student. If I'm asking the student to work in pairs or in groups, so for the group that finishes first, I will ask them to bring their product, to bring their first draft to my place, to the table. And then we just have kind of a small conference where I will look at their first draft and I will talk to them. Okay, I have a quick look and then I will show them, okay, so these are the ideas, what we have in here, what, you know. This is what I call the teacher-student conferencing. And we can make use of the time while the other students are working, but we have some fast finisher. But this is a very good way to give feedback on their writing product. It helps a lot. And my student, I use this a lot in my class, and my students especially love this one. And I have the feeling that some of them try to work effectively, work very fast so that they can come and talk to me. To tell the truth, it's a very good tool and a very good technique to use. Yeah, okay, right. So this is for revising. This is for revising, right? Let me go back to the my slide. Revising. Now, when we are done with checking for the ideas of the organization, here comes the editing, right? And then the proofing, editing. Now, we remember that for editing, we are looking at major grammar points and the use of vocabulary. So I agree with saying that at this time, if we don't have any more time, then we might ask the student to submit their paper. Okay, submit their paper, and then you will bring it home and you comment or something. But it is still at a stage where the student have to edit their own problems. So we shouldn't do everything for them. If you can ask the student to work in class at this stage, it will be very, very good. And again, we should use peer feedback again. We should ask the student to work in pairs. And then we ask them to look at the common errors, the grammar structure, grammar mistake, the vocabulary. Some of you may say, how can my student know that? Again, you will have, okay, this is what I call here. So far, I have talked to you about the feedback. The second one, when I'm talking about editing, and then proofreading, I want to mention the use of routines. For my writing class, I always try to set up the routine right from the beginning. And routine here can be how much time they should spend on that, what they work on the brainstorming stage, how many words should they write, blah, blah, blah. But for the editing stage, what I normally do is we will agree with each other on a set of kind of, when we look at the grammar errors, then we agree that we will look at the verb tenses. We agree that we will look at the structure of the sentence, whether we have subject, verb, object, whether we have main clause and subordinating clause, for example. Okay, because we are asking the student to check the grammar points for each other, right? So I normally ask them to read their friend's paper and then underline the problems with verb tense, underline the problem with the structures, underline the problem with some vocabulary or something, just those major problems. So I ask the student to underline the problems, and then they underline the problem, then they return it to their friends, and this friend will have to spend some time rewriting. Let's say for editing, rewriting their product to improve the grammar, the structure, and the vocabulary problems. If you don't have time to ask the student to do this in class, then you can do it yourself at home. You can do it yourself. But again, what I normally do is I underline the problems, and then I will write down, for example, tense. I will write down form. I will write down clause, structure, for example. And then I will return that to my students. And then I will give them a deadline, like 3 days or 1 week. They will have to improve it to problem this, and then give it back to me. That's it for editing. Okay, and then for proofreading, then again, you can do the same thing, and then they will have to pay attention to the punctuation and then the spelling. I like the idea that Sang has shared here. He said that he will put them in the student will put their product in a portfolio. They can rewrite as many times as they want, collect their portfolio at some point of the semester. Okay, we have that one. I mean, you give them the deadline, it's just what I say. So you have 1 week to edit your writing based on your friend's feedback. And then after that, you have 1 more week to proofread your writing. So I'm going to collect the paper after 2 weeks, and then it's time for me to mark this one. So you can see that we can still follow the writing process, but not all of the stages can be done in class. We can do planning, we can do drafting, we can do revising in class, but editing and then proofreading can be done at home and with the help of technology. Saying you can ask them to put in the portfolio, they can write it, and then they can submit to you later. In my class, not only at university classes, when I work with the IELTS classes, I still ask some of them to use Google Doc. Okay, they have to submit their draft in a Google Doc document, share it with me, then I give the comments, I highlight, I underline the comments, I just write out tense, verb, everything, and then I share it back with them, and then I say, next week, when you come, you have to improve. I would open the Google Doc document again, and then I see if they have edited the work or not. You can ask the student to use Google Doc. Yeah, you can ask your student to use Google Doc to work in groups, and they will have to edit their collaborative product. Their product, their group product together. So we can use the technology to work on editing and proofreading, and they don't need to take place inside the classroom. Okay, so but for planning, for planning, for writing, and for drafting, I think that we can do that in class because students need a lot of help with the ideas, with the grammar, the structure, and they need a lot of help with organizing the ideas. And if we don't fix those problems right at the beginning, when we come to editing and proofreading, it will be very hard to fix the big problems. It will waste a lot of time and the student may get bored easily. Okay, right. So this is what I have shared. I think that I have talked for, exactly 90 minutes already. And so this is what I normally do in my writing classes. I normally work with IELTS classes and then academic writing at university, but I think that this process, this approach can be totally applied to any kind of writing class. Like when you are working with secondary school and you just ask them to write a letter or an email, it can be easy. I think that it can be even easier because it doesn't take much time. It doesn't take much time to write because an email can be like 50 words. And then you can have the template, you can ask them to brainstorm the idea, and it can be the editing stage can be done right in class, but you have to set up the routines. The student have to know what they need to do within like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And we have to make use of handouts or worksheet, checklists, handout, everything, so that the student don't have to turn around and then ask, what do I have to do? And they don't have to ask us again and again for the instruction. So a few classes at the beginning of the school year will be a little bit messy, but when they are familiar with the procedures, I think that will go well, and then the student can work more effectively, and we can feel teacher can be happier when we will receive the product from the student. Okay, so this is what I want to share with you, and I hope that it can help you a little bit with your writing lessons. And I can see that some of you have much more interesting or wonderful ideas than I do. Just like Shang, you have shared with me a lot of things, and then we have totally a lot of common things. Okay, so I just hope that what I have shared with you this morning can give you some more information, some more suggestions for better lesson in writing. I think I can spend another 15 minutes if we need to talk a little bit more, or if you have any questions or you have any arguments that you want to share with me, please feel free to do so.
Actually, no more argument, Dr. Duc. I think the talk is very helpful, is very informative as well. But our concern, as I think our concern, especially for high school teachers about writing classes, about the time, we don't have that kind of much time to do a lot of things in the classroom. But the student, they always expect teachers' feedback all the time.
That's right.
For their writing. That's why the other day, in my talk, I did mention something about a flipped classroom where I will move most of the planning stage.
That's right.
To outside of the classroom via the use of asynchronous language input, so that the student may have more time working on their role in the classroom in their writing, and they will be able to receive the teacher's feedback on a more frequent basis. So that can be one idea for senior high school teachers as well.
Sure, totally agree with you. When we talk about a flipped classroom, I didn't want to go deep into the flipped classroom, but what I normally do is for the planning. I mean, at the end of the previous class, I normally have kind of some questions, kind of homework to ask them to prepare something for the next class. You can do it if people don't want to use a flipped classroom, then they can. But it is the same thing. Like I want you to think of to prepare something like think of one person. I want you to read. Okay, go to the internet. I want you to read about a person you admire, an idol. I want you to take notes of some achievement, what you like most about that. So we can ask the student to prepare the information, because sometimes the student cannot work well on the writing lesson. It's not because they are not good, just because they don't have ideas. And it takes a lot of time for them to find ideas, right? So in order to cut short of the time of brainstorming, finding ideas, I normally ask the student to search for information at home. Okay, but if you want to do that, then you will need to ask them, need to give them some kind of preparation at the end of the previous class. And when they come to this class, then everything will be done for this one. But Sam, if you say so, then you just you are splitting up the writing lesson into two halves. And then the first half is what they ask the student, you ask the student to do at home. And then they have to prepare everything. And when it comes to class, and then there will be the time for you to give feedback to help the student write better. Is it right?
Yeah, the planning stage is outside of the classroom. I mean, content knowledge, the very fundamental knowledge for understanding and remembering. It should be done outside the classroom to give more time for writing, for producing, for composing in the classroom, and feedback in the classroom. Yeah, that's my idea.
But one of the concerns I normally receive, and especially when you are dealing with a class in which the students are not very kind of disciplined, and then not all the student will have that kind of the preparation that you expect them to do, right?
Normally at the end of the flip content that I provide to them, I would have a Google form for them to fill in, to complete before they come to the class. But still cases, there will be some students that cannot really fulfill the requirement that I set for them before the class. So I will set them some private space to view, to watch those material before they can join the class later. Yeah, so if they don't do the flip at home, they will need to do the flip material in the class. So it's just
you have the corner for them, right?
Yeah.
And this is a good idea, Sam, because what you are doing is what we call differentiated instruction. Yeah, because you are trying to deal with different kind of a mixed level the student. I mean, for the student who are well prepared, then they can jump in and they can start the next step of the lesson. And for the student who haven't done all the preparation that you asked them to do, then we have what they call this is what they call the differentiated instruction in terms of the learning environment. They have the private corner, you have the study environment for them where they have self-access to this is what you call the flip materials, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a self-access to the learning materials, and then they have to finish that before they come in. But it means that you will have, I like the idea very much, but again, the teacher will have to work really hard at time because they are not on the same pace, because other students are working on the next step already, and that group of students are still kind of behind, and they have to work. Okay, and then you will have to manage both groups at the same time. But
yes, we have to. But I still think if the students are familiar with the idea and the teachers as well, they can actually find it quite easy to manage, because you need to sit still. You don't need to lecture all the time. You don't need to lead class. Your TTT would reduce as well. So yeah, it's like individual conferencing. And when those higher level students, they really come and then they are able to work on their own, they won't rely much on you.
Okay.
Yeah, as
All right.
compared to the
So
lower.
this is your kind of combining. Okay, a flipped classroom is suitable for differentiated instruction as well, because you can use it because students can work on their own pace, and then you will set up different activities for different groups of students, and then always a wonderful idea as well. Okay, thank you, Shan, for sharing with us the idea. Now, everybody, you can decide. Yeah, you can decide what. Oh, okay, where you want to organize the stages. So we're planning, drafting, revising, editing, and proofreading. But as I told you, the planning stage, especially planning stage has the smaller steps, you can see that, but analyzing the task, brainstorming for ideas, making the outline. And so you can see that analyzing the task is very important. If you are working with a high school classes, that is will be simple because the task is kind of straightforward. But if you are working with the IELTS classes, and then the IELTS tasks are not always very clear, right? And so helping the student analyzing how to analyze the task, to understand the task clearly is very important. And it should be done in class, right? Okay, and then we have brainstorming or something. And especially for the IELTS classes, we want the student to be able to do everything within a time limit, right? Okay, so again, the process-based approach to teaching writing should be done according to the context of your classes, the requirement or the objectives of your classes. So you can see now, so far what we have discussed so far, you can see that high school classes and then IELTS classes, we have to use the process-based approach differently already, right? So for the high school classes, then we can be a little bit more flexible, and then we can organize the planning, we can organize the editing, and then the proofreading at home. But for the IELTS classes, if you are aiming at helping your student to do everything within a time limit, and then it will be better, I think, to set up to train the student to do all the steps right in class, giving them a time limit. And they should be able to carry out everything first with another person, but then on their own. Okay, so you have to look at the objectives of your lesson. You have to look at your own context. But the writing process approach, the process-based writing approach can be used for any kind of writing lessons, I think. Okay, now, any more comments, please?
I have a question. What do you think of the importance of incorporating the speaking activities into, the writing class? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think it would be beneficial?
Speaking activity? Speaking
Yes.
activity? You're thinking about that? If you can do that, it would be wonderful, because but when do you think you can integrate the speaking activity in the writing lesson? When? In what stage?
Probably most of the time in the planning stage.
Brainstorming,
because,
right?
Yeah. Because the thing is that I'm having a couple of online classes, and sometimes for online classes, if you just have the students, sitting in their room and, in front of a screen and ask them to write, sometimes it's just the atmosphere of the class is just, I don't know how to say it, but it's really boring sometimes. So do you think that, incorporating the speaking skill would be helpful, or would it be, it would take the time from the writing practice?
I don't think that it will be a waste of time. It's a good thing to do, because when you ask the student to do some kind of speaking within the writing lesson, especially at the brainstorming stage. I think for the speaking activity, I'm not talking about writing, I will talk about the writing later. For the speaking activity, I think that this is one thing, one way we can improve fluency. Because most of the time, the student, when they practice speaking, then like role play, then they have kind of, they have to repeat, okay, a set of phrases and expression or something. And then we normally have the complaint, something like that. Yeah, when the student are asked to role play or to read a lot of conversation, that would be very good. But when they come out and then they have a daily conversation, then they start to something, right? They hesitate like this. Okay, I do believe that when you ask the student to talk to their friends, okay, during a real conversation like this, because they are speaking with a real purpose, right? Because they are helping each other to find ideas, to decide what example, a lot of things that they are using their language for a real purpose, as is a meaningful situation. And we are trying to encourage them to speak English as much as possible. And we are giving them the opportunity to use spoken language to real people for real purposes. However, this is their choice. I don't think that we should force them to use English all the time in the brainstorming stage. For the sake of speaking skill, it will be good because it helps them to build up their fluency. But for the writing lesson, you have to think again, because during the brainstorming stage, you are asking the student to try to think of ideas, original ideas, to try to remember some structure, some vocabulary. So sometimes they have good ideas, but they don't know yet the vocabulary, they don't know how to express it, right? And if you just force them to use English, then they may give up. Okay, I don't know what happens in your classes, but in my class, during the planning, during the brainstorming steps, I allow them to use Vietnamese if they cannot say that in English. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at, sorry, if you look, I'm trying to read Shang's comment in here. Yeah, okay, so there are pros and cons to that. So for the speaking activity, for the development of speaking skill, then it will be good. But for the writing, if you are helping the student to find ideas, then you encourage them to speak English, but they may use Vietnamese sometimes. They may use the L1 sometimes if they are unable to express their ideas. And then you can come, or other students can come and to help. Okay, Loan, what do you think?
Well, this is a good idea, and I'll definitely need to consider this one next time. Yeah, because sometimes the students find it hard to. They do have the idea, but then it's really hard for them to try to look for the proper vocabulary that they can use to express there. So, thank you very much for your input.
But I myself do use a lot of speaking activity during the planning session. And I also use the speaking activity during, you know what, the editing, revising and editing stages. Revising and editing stages, because students can work together, they can discuss, and sometimes they argue with each other, say, no, this is not good because you have to use the simple present here, because you have to use this one here, because. So I also have some, if I have time, and also ask them to discuss, okay, during the revising and the editing stages. But of course, it is their choice whether to use the L1 or the L2.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I do use a lot, and because I don't like my writing class to be very quiet, I always want the
Yes,
student
that's
to
the
talk.
problem.
Yeah,
That's
I
right. That's
always
right. Yeah,
want.
sometimes writing class can be too quiet, and the student,
Yeah.
yeah, they can wander somewhere else and not in the class anymore. So we need something to
That's why
know.
you know that you remember I said that we have the student teacher conferencing activities.
Mhm.
Okay, so when they
Yeah.
sit down and talk to me, then I also encourage them to talk to me. We discuss in English, but then we get stuck. And I say, okay, what do you want to say? Okay, you can talk to me in English, in Vietnamese, and I will try to express in English for you. And then I will help them to reformulate their ideas in better English as well. So you can see that in our writing lesson, there are a lot of opportunities for the speaking skill to develop. Not only sitting down and writing and something all the time. No, I do encourage using a lot of speaking activities during our writing lessons.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Now, any more comments, please? Yes, Phương, please.
Hello, Dr. Duc.
You don't have to say that. Okay.
I had a class this morning actually, but I canceled it just to be here with you. Thank you so much. My section, good question. Actually, I'm teaching IELTS writing, and I really love the idea of process writing when we will look at the process of the writing of the students. But for the IELTS writing, I think the ultimate goal is to let students to write something under the pressure of time on your own. So the idea of process writing, I think, is hard to apply for writing IELTS. And I think it's better to use product writing. But I still want to ask you, is there any way that we can include process writing into the process of teaching IELTS writing?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And actually, I have to say, I have to disagree with you. Because if you look at IELTS as IELTS writing as a product, how can you help the student develop their writing skill? Because you know that for IELTS writing, then they have to start with planning, right? Okay, and they have to go on with revising, outlining and revising, and then proofreading everything. It's just the same as what we have discussed this morning. I teach IELTS a lot, and then in my IELTS writing class, I do the same. Okay, I follow the same stages. It's just that I will break it out into smaller chunks, but I always set the time limit. Let me tell you what I normally do. And then see if you agree with me that is still the writing as a process. I would know at the beginning, I'll show them the task. And then I'll say, you have 1 minute to underline the task works and circle the topic works. 1 minute. Okay, so exactly 1 minute. And I'll stop them and I will check. Okay, stop them and I will check. Okay. And then, so when I check, I'll say, okay, you have 1 more minute to think about, okay, so you know what you have, okay, what we have to write about, what kind of essay is that, and then, so if it's how many questions are there, and so it means that in the body of the essay, how many parts do we have? Okay, we have 2 parts, okay, right, so we're done with analyzing the task. Now, in the next step, I will ask them, okay, so I have the handout or just on the board or whatever. Okay, now you have 5 minutes. Okay, you know that we have 2 questions here. You have to address 2 questions here. Now, you have 5 minutes. I want you to write out as less, okay, 3 or 4 ideas here and 3 or 4 ideas here. Exactly 5 minutes. 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you have to stop. And then I ask them to share. I ask them to share with their friends or something. And after they have shared with their friends, then I will collect the ideas. I'll collect the ideas on the board. Collect the idea on the board. And then they have a lot of ideas. And it's just like brainstorming. We have a lot of ideas here. And then they have 1 more minute, just 1 more minute. We have like a lot of ideas here. So I asked them to select 2 ideas for the first paragraph, 2 ideas for the second paragraph, blah, blah, blah. 1 more minute. Okay, and then they have to keep it for themselves. Okay, right. And then this is 1. So we have 1 minute, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 7 minutes already. 7 minutes already. Now I asked them to spend 1 or 2 more minutes. 1 or 2 more minutes. And then I want them to look at all the outline they have just got. I want them to see whether they want to change the order. Okay, I want them to add some more example. Take notes of some example they want to support. They want to use to support their argument. Just 1 more minute. Okay, right, that is done. Then in the next stage, I will give them like 20 to 25 minutes. If it's task 2, 20 to 25 minutes, they have to write. 20 to 25 minutes, they will have to write. Okay, and then after 20 to 25 minutes, then they exchange. They're writing with another person, and again, I ask them to look, okay, underline the tenses in here, underline the relative clauses in here, underline the conditional sentences here, underline something like this, and check whether they are correct or not. Okay, then we are on that. Okay, and then the last 2 minutes, I ask them to look at punctuation, preposition, under, or something. And so all the main steps that they have to go through all together will be 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? Still they have to work under the time pressure, right? Within the time limit, right? Yeah, so we have for brainstorming, for outlining, for everything, we have to stick to the time limits. And this is how it works. But if you look at that, we still go through planning, drafting, revising, okay, this one. But if you want to go further, so after they have submitted, for IELTS class, we don't have the time constraint like in the high school. So after they have submitted, in my class, after they have submitted the paper to me, then I'll bring them home and then I will underline and then write out grammar, tense, word form, blah, 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 blah. And then the next class, I'll return and I ask them to fix those problems.
Oh, okay.
And that's the editing. That's the editing. I never correct the problems for them. I just underline and write a symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And for the symbol that they know that, okay, for verb tense and they have a problem with the verb tense, article, they have the problem and they will have to do the correction for me. And then they submit it again and then that's will be the proofreading and editing. And this is what I do.
Okay, I see. That means they're able to correct the mistake themselves and learn from their mistakes.
Yes. And do you think this is a process?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a process. It's still the process, right? But when we work on the IELTS class at the language center, we don't have the time constraint. So we can split up the lesson and we can divide it into 2 halves and you can do that. So is it still teaching as writing as a process, right? I think that I have time to answer 1 more questions here from Cook. Can we apply the process-based writing to teach other kinds of writing such as business writing? Yes, absolutely. I remember I said that we can use the process-based writing to any kind of writing lesson, like for CATPAD, when the student have to write an email, for when the student have to write a letter to something or just a paragraph, or for business writing, for planning, you can do what Sang has done. I mean that because for business writing, the student may have to spend some time examining the format of business letters, right? We have a lot for business writing. Then we do have, I think that one of the biggest problem for business writing is the format of business correspondence, right? So we can do this, like we can ask the students to prepare by collecting, searching the internet, searching for some templates, for some samples of business letter before the classes. You can ask them to collect some, for example, you can ask them to collect some structure, some sentences, some vocabulary. People, for example, you are teaching how to write a letter of complaint. Okay, so then you can ask the student to search the internet and to find some expression, to open a letter, to express the complaint, to demand for solution, for compensation, and then to end a letter. So ask them to collect the material first. And when it comes to class, during the planning stage, we don't have to spend much time to that. Okay, so that's what I suggest for business writing. Yeah, we can make use of vocabulary. Then for business writing, I think that making use of the internet is a very good idea because we don't have to talk much. We don't have to teach everything. We ask the student to find them. And I think that if the student find the structure, the vocabulary, the idea by themselves, they will remember them. If the teacher gives them to the student, they won't remember. This is my experience. Sang, I do the same thing as what you are doing with your IELTS writing. It means that normally when I this is for the writing lesson, and after every 1 or 2 units, then they will have to sit down and work alone on their own on kind of simulated writing test in the writing. That means totally 40 minutes, and then they will have to do everything by themselves, just like a mock test or a practice test. Yeah, sure. But we are talking about a writing lesson, and we have to do this step. But after that, we want to see if they know how to carry it out all the things by themselves. Then you can ask them to do one session on their own. And this is what we normally do in the IELTS classes, right? Yeah, so we do have a lot. Okay, so Cook does okay. I hope that those what I'm doing then can help you in your business writing lesson. But we don't know everything, right? We don't know everything. I don't want to know a lot of things like that. Okay, so let the student find out about them by themselves, and they will learn more. They will learn more when they discover things by themselves. Okay, I'm sorry guys that I think that it has been more than 2 hours of me talking, and so I hope that what we have discussed today can give you a little bit of some ideas for you to improve your writing lesson. If you if you do have some other questions, or you want to have a chat or something, whatever, I'm giving you my email address. Feel free to contact me. Okay, if you want to talk more about that. Just a minute. Sure, if you want, I'm not sure if you want to have a Zalo group, and then you can totally add me into a Zalo group. Okay, let's see. You need my phone number, right? Cook, you need my phone number, right? In order to set up a Zalo group, you need my phone number. I'm giving it here to you. So you have my email address. You have my phone number. Okay, so you can add me to your group. I am open. I welcome all the comments, the question, discussion, and so arguments. I love that very much. And then because I'm learning from you as well. Because when you ask me questions, when you give me the problems in your classes, I'm learning, because part of my job is to provide training to the teacher. So I need to know what the teachers are facing, what kind of problem you are facing, so that I can think of solution, right? So if you don't know what you are facing, how can I help? And then how can I? So I'm learning every day from you and from everybody around. So thank you very much for talking to me today. Okay, and look forward to seeing you in our TERECONET events later on. Yeah, and then feel free to contact me if you want to chat more about anything, not just about writing, about everything. Okay, thank you. So I will turn on my camera now because I want to have a group photo. Okay. Yeah. Sang, we need to meet and to talk sometime, Sang. Okay.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for Thư and for Huyền for supporting me today. Okay. All right. Okay.
Everybody say cheese.
Cheese.
One more? Do you want one more?
It's up to you. Okay. All right.
Cheese.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time. Have a good day left. Okay. Bye-bye.
Hey, goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.